Is there a point at which the US military machine gets called in to stop the competition or cartel? Lynn Alden beautifully answers this statement that when you have a nuclear power like Russia selling oil outside the dollar-based system, there's little you can do about that militarily. They have been doing sanctions and things like that for kind of related reasons, not necessarily using deciding that reason. Basically, we are unlikely to do some kinetic military action against that sort of situation. The way that it's currently structured is that the United States military is doing a really good job of making sure that China is able to access all the oil they want. And so basically it's one of those things where the cost has gone up and over time, whereas who is benefiting the most from the system has actually shifted away from the United States. So right now it's basically we are preparing for the system, but it's not necessarily benefiting us in the same way that it did decades ago. People from all over the world are concerned about the future purchasing power of their home fiat currencies. Addressing this concern, Lynn Alden said that she also thinks fiat currencies are not very attractive in this current environment. Ray Dalio, for example, referred to cash as trash. Basically, people are getting little to no interest rates, in some cases even the negative interest rates to hold cash, and yet the inflation rate is in most countries positive, in some cases strongly positive, and so people cannot keep up with the rise in prices, which means if you are holding cash in a bank, probably 5 years from now, you are gonna have notably less purchasing power, according to Lynn Alden. Even if there's no major inflation spike or major kind of reset or something like that, just the sheer kind of losing points every year is a big issue. And that's actually already been happening over the past decade, where most of the past decade no one really got positive real yields by holding either T-bills or cash in a bank. And it's kind of accelerating here in the 2020s. All of this corresponds to just one thing, that fiat currencies are not a good store value, especially in this current environment. When asked about where does she thinks that the capital is better treated, she points that it depends on what country you are in and what you are interested investing in. But she thinks that there are a variety of equities in the commodity space or in some of the value sectors that are pretty attractive at the current time. There are assets like precious metals or farmland that are attractive. Lynn Alden personally uses Bitcoin as a diversifier. At this point, many assets are at all-time record high levels of valuation, and the term the everything bubble has been put out there, which clearly says that almost every asset class is now in an asset price bubble. But Lynn Alden counters this by adding that after the late 60s, when we had very high equity valuations and we entered a more inflationary period, had a really choppy sideways market, had a ton of volatility, had significant drawdowns, had poor returns, had very poor inflation adjusted returns. And so overall, she is kind of looking at that as the lower end case for how this likely goes. We are basically the way it's currently structured. She don't think we are going to have a 1929 style crash because in that environment the dollar is pegged to gold. So basically what you are doing is pricing the S&P 500 or the Dow in gold. And that's going down significantly and staying down for a very long period of time. Whereas if you are pricing something in a denominator that itself is losing value, it's a little bit more fluid. It can soften some of those giant crashes. But overall, if we look at the S&P 500 by most metrics, we are either the most expensive we have been in terms of the Buffett ratio, the market capitalization to GDP, whereas other metrics show that we are the second most expensive we have ever been in terms of the CAPE ratio. Basically, we are second to the dot-com bubble, and there's 5 to 10 indicators that we can look at, and the most of them say number 1 or number 2. So that's obviously a really big challenge for the forward returns of stocks. Now, a complicating factor is the fact that bond yields are also super low. For example, if we look at the dot-com bubble, the equity risk premium was very low, meaning there was almost a no-brainer to buy treasuries. Instead, they were yielding like 6% and had a positive real return compared to buying equities. The challenge in this environment is, if we look at the past century of data, stocks are still kind of in a place where they could do equal or better returns, potentially over the next 10 years than 10-year treasuries, and investors gonna have that challenge. where both bonds and stocks are very expensive in absolute terms. And because those are the major kind of liquid investment classes, a lot of people kind of looking at those two and say, well, I would still rather own a significant chunk of equities. If you look under the hood at certain sectors that are not in favor, a lot of those are actually either averagely priced or in some cases underpriced compared to their historical average. So the everything bubble is in many ways more of an interest rate bubble. That then caused a duration bubble. Long duration assets like growth stocks are at extremely high valuations because they are using extremely low discount rates that might or may not persist. Whereas if we look at equities, they basically have more of their cash flows in the near term, the next few years, like value stocks like banks or energy companies or healthcare companies or pipeline companies, things like that. Those are actually in many cases either trading at valuations that are in line with the past 30 years or some cases they are pretty cheap. For example, the energy sector, that's been in a 13-year bear market, and so Linet thinks that there are pockets of value both in certain sectors. And if we look at internationally, at say certain Russian stocks, if we look at certain Japanese value equities that have global exposure, or if we look at some of the things in Southeast Asia for example, there are pockets of value out there that someone can piece enough those together to have a diversified portfolio that limits the probability of a 50% correction or other kind permanent loss of capital from the views of Lyn Alden. Now please tell me your predictions about the future in the comment section below this video. And on which topic should I create my next video, please tell me that also. Till then you can surf previous videos on our channel. Also like this video, subscribe to our channel. Bye bye and take care.